20 or 30 people.
All right, I guess we can start our 1 o'clock meeting now.
It works. I mean, I don't do a lot of.
Thanks to Sue, you gave us plenty of time for lunch. And it's sure good to see everybody in person. First want to say that. I recognize most of you. It's been well over a year. Some of us have gotten together in between. And we'll just start. I have representing the state agencies today. Who's here for Julie? Hey, Alicia. And for DHCD?
John.
Hey, John. And I got one more? That's it? I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you enjoyed lunch. That's the best thing we offer today. All right, we do have a quorum, so we'll roll right on into the meeting. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I assume you're ready to vote on those. All those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes carried. Okay, we have our first proposal today from Lisa Herger. And this is the final update on agricultural regulations, which is what, your third time around for this?
Mike is behind the computer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Out of practice.
It's been a while. One thing I understand that you were told in the subcommittees that we have directional mics, so if you want to say anything nasty about the chair, you might want to do it at home. Yeah. Or direct it to the wall. Mine's right here.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all again in person, as Chairman Deegan said. It's been so long and this feels so awkward somehow, but it's actually the norm, really. This afternoon, as Chairman Deegan mentioned, we are bringing for your consideration the agricultural regulations, and it's a vote for final publication in the Maryland Register. You may recall, or some of you may not because you weren't members yet, but a year ago at our August 2020 meeting, we actually brought the proposed draft to you all for consideration for publication in the Maryland Register. And that has subsequently happened. They were put on hold for a while, but we got through that. So I'm going to do a quick recap. So the purpose of the regulations, just like we've been doing methodically through some of the other chapters of COMAR Title 27, is to modernize the drafting style, to update the regulations where we have some, references to old regulations or old statutes, and to delete outdated provisions. Because recall, as I remind you all, our regulations were approved back in 1984, so they're pretty old, and a lot of stuff has happened since then. And I also want to point out that when we were drafting these regulations, we worked very closely in the very beginning with your former colleague, Louise Lawrence, who represented the Department of Agriculture on this commission, and then subsequently Julie Oberg, who's our current member, and also with us this afternoon, Alicia Malke from the Department of Agriculture, who was very helpful in working with commission staff and making sure we were getting this right. So we went into the definition section in both subtitles 01 and 02, and we have a new definition, agricultural best management practices. And just a quick reminder, the reason we have a new definition is because we have a definition in our regulations that exists that's called best management practices, but those are specific to stormwater. And we want it to differentiate between the two. So thus we have this new definition. And then we've amended the definition of agriculture, aquaculture, soil conservation and water quality plans, and tributary stream. And the first three are what we consider technical changes, and that's where we're trying to bring them up to par with current regulations and statute. Continuing with the definitions, we repealed the ones that you see on your screen. Best management practice, which was in this chapter of the regulations, and it didn't fit. Cover crop, land-based aquaculture, palustrian, and water-based aquaculture, and the reason for those repealed is because we do not use those terms in the regulations, so they're gone. And then in the chapter for agriculture is regulation changes, again to the definition of agriculture. We're also redrafting policies and repealing and reenacting the actual regulation and criteria. It was just easier to repeal the whole section of regulations and then rewrite them properly. So we're doing that, mirroring those changes in both subtitle 01 and subtitle 02, where the agricultural regulations appear in those subtitles. In Chapter 9 of subtitle 01, we're going into 01-6, and we're doing some redrafting there because we do have a few agricultural provisions in that chapter. And then also in Chapter 5 of Subtitle 2, State Agency Actions on State-Owned Lands, we're going into the buffer regulation and doing some redrafting. Again, it's mirroring what's happening in Subtitle 01, and you can see that in your draft that you had attached to your staff report. In Subtitle 03, Chapter 3, we're doing some redrafting. And then finally, in Subtitle 03, Chapter 01, Regulation 01, we're amending the definition of tributary stream. And this has nothing to do with agriculture, it's just something we saw, and we decided to slip it in this proposal. So the timing is, as I said earlier, the commission voted to allow commission staff to publish these regulations a year ago. We held off for about a half a year or so because we were doing some other regulations, but then we were able to get them in the register on April 23rd. The 30-day comment period ended on May 24th. We received no public comment, and today we are seeking a vote for approval, and if that happens this afternoon, I estimate that they will be published in the register on August 27th with a final effective date of September 6th. And I will turn it back over to Chairman Deegan at this point.
Any questions? Lisa, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll recognize Sue Beer, the chairman of the program subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the project subcommittee, we move that you authorize, commission staff be authorized to publish these regulations as they appear in the April 23rd, 2021 edition of the Maryland Register as final regulations in a future edition of the Maryland Register.
Second. Second by Mike Hewitt. Any discussion? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, Lisa, we're going to do this again on renewable energy.
Yes. Again, this is Lisa Herger, the regulations coordinator for the commission. And as the chairman just said, we are presenting to you all this afternoon the updates to the renewable energy regulations. And you may recall that back in March, the renewable energy regulations became effective. And then actually prior to that time, probably last fall, we've been in conversations with our colleagues at the Department of Natural Resources and the Power Plant and Environmental Review section, and with the staff of the Public Service Commission. And we've been coordinating with them on the submittal requirements for applicants for Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, or CPCN. So subsequent to that time, we've come to you, and we actually were able to get these published in the Maryland Register. And I'm just going to do a quick review for you all so you remember, because I know it's been a few months. The purpose was to require a list of information that we would like to see when an applicant for CPCN or Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity applies with the PSC. We'd like to see that solar energy generating systems in limited development areas and the resource conservation areas specifically be sent to the commission staff for review. And at that point, the staff will determine whether it gets elevated up to you all for a formal vote or if it's reviewed at the staff level. And finally, require that once these applications are finalized, particularly at the local level, so they've gone through the PSC process, but then they also have to get local building and grading permits, that we see those final plans and permits be sent to the commission staff. So I'm going to quickly run through the next couple of slides. These are attached to your staff report in the form of the draft that was published in the Maryland Register. In the application requirements, you can see this is a brand new regulation under Chapter 14. And recall that Chapter 14 is the Renewable Energy Generating System chapter, brand spanking new since March. So we're just putting this new regulation in to ensure that major solar energy generating systems, specifically in the resource conservation area, address the requirements that I'm going to show you on the next couple slides. So we're cross-referencing to Subtitle 02, specifically Chapter 7, which is the Commission Review Decision Process and Timeframes chapter. And in current Regulation 02, we're putting in additional requirements specifically to critical area for certificates of public convenience and necessity. And this is a whole list that goes through like A through J, and I'll quickly run through them. So basic site plan information, it seems like a lot, but it's what we need to actually do a thorough review. That the applicant actually put the boundary on the site plan, including the critical area classification, the project and limits of disturbance, the acreage inside the critical area, if there's a 100-foot buffer, show the buffer, if applicable, the 300-foot setback, any habitat protection areas or forest and developed woodlands that may currently exist on site, existing and proposed lot coverage, steep slopes, proposed mitigation, any proposed planting plans associated with that mitigation, calculations demonstrating compliance with the stormwater management requirements, notice requirements, etc. So that's the list. And then finally, in Subtitle 03, Chapter 1, Regulation 04, this is a regulation that exists, and sections A through F is a complete list of any type of application that a local government might get, whether it's a subdivision, site plan, variance, reclassification, and it instructs local governments when we want to see it and under what circumstances. So we're adding a G. For major and minor solar energy generating systems, we want the local government to submit a copy to us, the commission staff, so that we have a copy of it, and then finally a copy of the final approved application. Now, I sent you an amended staff report, and you'll notice on this slide, give me one moment, and on this slide specifically, I have highlighted the words "to a local jurisdiction." And what we're proposing is that if, for this afternoon for the vote, we want to add this non-substantive change, and non-substantive means we're not amending it in a way that's going to affect the way someone is regulated. This is simply extraneous language that none of us caught, including all 29 of you, because you all read this, right? But the regulations coordinator didn't either. So we're proposing to delete the words "to a local jurisdiction." So it will read, major and minor solar energy generating systems, the local approving authority shall submit a copy of any applications for a major or minor solar energy generating system that would occur wholly or partially in the limited development area and resource conservation area in accordance with COMAR 27-0114 and COMAR 27-0207, and a copy of the final approved application for a major solar energy generating system. Whenever we have a change, we have to have it reviewed by our Assistant Attorney General to ensure that it's non-substantive, and it's important that it be non-substantive or we have to start the whole regulatory process over again. And she has determined that it is a non-substantive change, so we can all feel good that this is something we can continue forward with for the final process. So the timing is, it was published in the May 5th edition of the Register. You all voted on at your May 5th meeting. It was published in the June 18th edition of the Register. There were no comments received through the end of the public comment period, which was July 19th. And if you vote on it today to move forward, the estimated publication date will be August 27th with the final effective date of September 6th. Now we'll turn it back over to Chairman Deegan.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Seeing none, I'll recognize, this one's yours, Sandy. Chairman of our project subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On behalf of the project subcommittee, I move to authorize commission staff to publish these regulations as they appeared in the June 23rd, 2021 edition of the Maryland Register as final regulations in a future edition of the Maryland Register, and to approve the non-substantive change in OMAR 27030104G, where the words "to a local jurisdiction" are removed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pat Mahoney? Any discussion? Seeing none? I assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Lisa, you got one more. We'll do water dependent facility regulations.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Deegan. Again, this is Lisa Herger. I'm the regulations coordinator for the commission. And this afternoon, we're bringing forward to you today the water dependent facilities regulations, actually is the title. And you all saw this draft back, I think it was also the last August meeting. We brought it to you as information. And it's different today because it's missing a piece. And the piece that it's missing is a brand new regulation that we added to this one. It was what we called Regulation 11. And we've decided in discussions amongst ourselves and some of our colleagues that we've been working with that we're going to hold on to that regulation for a bit. And it had to do with allowing agricultural and forest-related product transfer facilities at or near the shoreline. And we're putting that on hold for a while. So what you have before you today is purely an update type of proposal, which is similar to the agricultural regulations that you all just voted on earlier. So, like the other chapters that we've been methodically updating, we are modernizing the drafting style, updating and deleting any outdated provisions. So no new regulatory requirements, we're just updating it. And in Regulation 01 and Subtitle 01, we're going into the definitions. We're amending the definition of community pier disturbance and the definition of port. We're repealing water use industry because we do not use the term. And then we're moving these three terms, permanent disturbance, structure, and temporary disturbance, from our Chapter 9 Habitat Protection Area regulations into this one because we're going to be using it subtitle-wide. So getting into Chapter 3, water-dependent facilities, we're doing a lot of redrafting primarily, so it's not that exciting, but it's necessary. So for 01 regulation definition, we're amending the definition of water-dependent facilities to bring it up to speed, and I didn't mention this earlier, but we've been working with our colleagues within the Maryland Department of Environment to make sure that what we're doing is consistent with their regulations and statute updates since 1984. In the policy section, the general criteria section, and then certainly local plan for water-dependent facilities section, we're just doing redrafting there. And continuing on, these regulations go on through like Regulation 10. So in Regulation 05, 6, and 7, for industrial and port-related facilities, marinas, and community piers, we're simply redrafting. Regulation 08, 09, and 10, public beaches, research areas, and fisheries activities, again, just redrafting. And then we get into Chapter 9, which is our habitat protection areas, and specifically Regulation 01 is the buffer regulations, and we're deleting and moving, remember those three definitions I talked about earlier, which is of structure, permanent, and temporary disturbances, and we're doing some minor redrafting. When we get to Regulation 01-2 in the buffer regs, which is mitigation and planting standards, there is a table which you can see in your draft that was attached to your staff report that includes two columns, one for permanent and one for temporary disturbance. We're removing the temporary disturbance column because that will make it consistent with what we're saying in the water dependent facilities chapter. In Chapter 11, directives for updating critical area maps, we're simply just going in and updating some language that had to do with water-dependent facilities to make it consistent. And then in Chapter 13, the non-water-dependent projects chapter, I have to say that very slowly because it's a tongue twister for me. We're amending the definition of non-water-dependent projects to clarify that a water-dependent facility or activity does not include one of those. So I'm sure that was really easy to get real quick. Moving into subtitle O2, 01 is the general provisions, mirroring what we've done in subtitle O1. These are the definitions, same thing that we're doing. We are proposing a new definition of vessel because we're using it for the first time in this chapter. Chapter 5, state agency actions on state-owned land. In Chapter 5, Regulation 01 is where we find all the provisions for water-dependent facilities, and we're going in there and doing, if you will, mirror changes that we did in Subtitle 01. And the same thing here. 09 is the buffer regulations in Chapter 5, and 12 is the plant and wildlife habitat regulations in Chapter 5, and we're doing the same thing, updating, mirror stuff that we're doing in Subtitle 01. And finally, in Subtitle 03, Chapter 1, we are updating the definition of structure because we found, this is another one of those little quickie things that we found, like I said about the tributary streams before, we have a definition of structure in every subtitle, so we were like, none of them matched, so we're making them match. So no big deal there. So the timing is, we're hoping this afternoon that if you give us permission to publish, I don't know what the timing is, because we can't specifically propose any new regulations until ones that we currently have in the process are finished. And we just voted today on the agricultural regulations, finalizing those, and on the update to the renewable energy regulations. So until those get through their process, which is not until September 6th, then we'll know more about timing, but sometime in the fall probably. And I will turn it over to Chairman Deegan at this point.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Seeing none? Let's see, who do I recognize this time? How about Sandy? Chairman of our program, project subcommittee. Emily.
Thank you, Chairman Deegan. On behalf of the project subcommittee, I move to approve the regulations affecting the following Code of Maryland regulations. COMAR 270101, general provisions. COMAR 270103, water dependent facilities. COMAR 270109, habitat protection areas in the critical area. COMAR 270111, directives for updating critical area maps. COMAR 270113, non-water dependent projects. COMAR 270201, general provisions. COMAR 270205, state agency actions resulting in development on state-owned lands. And COMAR 270301, notification of project applications. One second. There's a little bit more. Lisa wrote a really long one for me. And two, to approve regulations that adopt amended regulation 01 under COMAR 270101 general provisions, adopt new regulation 01-1 and amend regulations 01 and 02 through 10 under COMAR 270103 water dependent facilities. Amend regulations 01 and 01-2 under COMAR 270109 habitat protection areas in the critical area. Amend regulation 04 under COMAR 270111 directives for updating critical area maps. Amend regulation 01 under 270113 non-water dependent projects. Amend regulation 01 under COMAR 270201 general provisions. Amend regulations 04, 09, and 12, and propose new regulations 04-1, 04-2, 04-3 under COMAR 270205, state agency actions on state-owned lands, and amend regulation 01 under COMAR 270301 under notification of project applications. And finally, to authorize commission staff to forward this draft to the Administrative, Executive, and Legislative Review Committee and subsequently to publish these regulations as proposed regulations in the Maryland Register.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Any discussion? Seeing none, assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're just rolling today. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Susan, good to see you,
Nice to see
besides in the hallway.
everyone else.
One of my favorite things, MOU.
Thank you, Chairman Deegan, and again, good afternoon, everyone. It is good to see everyone again. For the record, this is Susan McClure. I'll be presenting the Historic St. Mary's City Commission MOU. And before I get started, I want to recognize Joe Kangas, who's with us today. He's the Director of Facilities and Grounds for Historic St. Mary's City Commission. So if there are any questions at the end of the presentation, he'll be here to help answer them. Thanks again for making the trip, Joe. Okay, before we get started, I just want to give you a brief outline for the presentation today. We'll begin with some background information with Historic St. Mary's City, then we'll discuss general approvals before getting to the specifics of the Historic St. Mary's City Commission MOU, including the attachments. So to help orient you to where Historic St. Mary's City is located, here's a map of Maryland with St. Mary's County circled. And zooming in just a bit more, the purple tag here along the St. Mary's River is where the city is located. And zooming in just a tiny bit more, the green area are the city limits for Historic St. Mary's City. And the map on the right has the critical area overlaid on top. The Historic St. Mary's City polygon. You can see it's all RCA in Historic St. Mary's City, and there's about 350 acres of RCA located in the city. So the lands of Historic St. Mary's City are owned by the state of Maryland and governed by the Historic St. Mary's City Commission. The Historic St. Mary's City Commission was established in 1966, and its mission is to preserve and protect the archaeological and historical record of Maryland's first colonial capital, and to appropriately develop and use this historic and scenic site for the education, enjoyment, and general benefit of the public. Historic St. Mary's City has been recognized as a National Historic Landmark since 1969 and is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. So as you already know, under Natural Resources Article 8, 1801 and COMAR 2702, the Critical Area Commission is required to approve any action by state agency which results in development in the critical area on state-owned lands, private lands, or lands owned by local jurisdictions. COMAR 270203 specifically gives the Commission the ability to enter into a general approval with state agencies to seek approval for programs or classes of activities that result in development of a minor scale in the critical area. This general approval authority has commonly been implemented through the use of a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the Commission and a state agency. The MOU outlines the process for the review and approval by the Commission for Historic St. Mary's City projects located within the critical area. It describes the responsibilities of both parties and provides a streamlined process for the review of specific types of projects. The MOU includes details regarding the specific projects that can be reviewed, the thresholds for disturbance or impacts for projects that can qualify under the MOU, and the necessary mitigation. Exhibit A of the MOU, which begins on page 8, includes the conditions for general approval of Historic St. Mary's City projects that may be approved at the agency or staff level. And these project types are broken into two categories. Category 1, limited reporting activities, and Category 2, development that is minor in size and/or scope. The MOU also includes two attachments. Attachment 1 is a mitigation guidance document, and it includes stormwater management guidance and a master buffer management plan. Attachment 2 is a site-wide climate resiliency assessment, which provides a baseline tool for Historic St. Mary's City Commission staff to use when addressing critical area climate resiliency requirements for specific projects. The attachments will be discussed in more detail later in the presentation. So as noted in the previous slide, activities that qualify for review under the MOU fall within two categories. Category 1 activities, or limited reporting activities, must meet the qualifying parameters for Category 1 projects and must be reported annually to Commission staff. Category 2 projects, development that is minor in size and/or scope, must meet the qualifying parameters for Category 2 projects and must be submitted to Commission staff for review and approval. The Category 2 qualifying parameters begin on page 10. Examples include the following. New buildings or structures are limited to 2,000 square feet. Forest and developed woodland clearing is limited to 10,000 square feet for linear projects and 5,000 square feet for non-linear projects. And no impacts to habitat protection areas other than a buffer are allowed. The thresholds for disturbance or impacts listed under the qualifying parameters may be exceeded by minor amounts if Historic St. Mary's City Commission staff provides justification for the exceedance. Critical area staff will review the submittal and notify Historic St. Mary's City Commission staff whether or not they concur with granting an exception. If the project does not meet the exception, it will require full Critical Area Commission review and approval. Section 3.1.9 of the MOU on page 11 includes examples of justification, such as the nature or intensity of the project is not changing, and after completion of work, the site will be restored to original conditions. Attachment 1, mitigation, begins on page 15 of the MOU. This attachment includes guidance related to stormwater management, a master buffer management plan, and potential mitigation sites. The stormwater management section includes a list of landscape options for stormwater best management practice that may be more suitable for historic sites given the constraints with ground disturbance. The master buffer management plan identifies several specific uses allowed within the buffer in historic St. Mary's City and includes guidance for each of these buffer uses. The master buffer management plan also includes the mitigation ratios for buffer impacts and a list of potential mitigation sites that have been identified to date. Attachment 2, the site-wide climate resiliency assessment, begins on page 24. Per COMAR 27020502A2, state agencies are required to consult with the Commission as soon as practicable in the project planning process to assess climate resilient practices that address coastal hazards, extreme weather events, sea level rise, and other impacts. Historic St. Mary's City Commission staff will use the site-wide climate resiliency assessment to determine whether a proposed project is located within a vulnerable area. If a Category 2 project is located in a vulnerable area, staff will follow the procedures outlined in Attachment 2. Historic St. Mary's City is also required to review all applicable capital projects in accordance with the Coast Smart Construction Program guidance as amended to ensure avoidance and minimization of impacts to projects in vulnerable locations. Okay. Thank you for your attention. I will now turn it back over to Chairman Deacon.
Thank you, Susan. Do we have any questions? Well, in that case, I'll recognize our project subcommittee chairman, Sandy Herger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the project subcommittee and in accordance with staff report and recommendation, I move that the commission approve the Historic St. Mary's City Commission Memorandum of Understanding for general approval with the following amendments. Number 1, for clarity, the following words will be deleted from page 9 of the MOU, section 2.3, Natural Resources Management. The words are : mitigation and number 2, the following phrase will be deleted from page 17 of the MOU, meadow maintenance, as it is repeated. Chapel Field North, 2.76 acres, parentheses, 0.98 acres in the CA, close parentheses. The MOU establishes the conditions for general approval of Historic St. Mary's City Commission's specific maintenance and redevelopment actions.
Second by Commissioner Hewitt. I'm always happy to see these MOUs come through, because it shows we're trying to streamline government a little bit. So, any questions? Yeah, so you ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Another unanimous vote. And now we're going to go back to the program subcommittee, and Annie Sakaric, you're going to step in for Jen this week, today?
Sure am.
And do the town of Indian Head. Mike, you got a lot today from St. Mary's County.
Two.
You're monopolizing them, Ken.
Just glad it's not you.
Okay, I think I turned this on, right? Okay, excellent. Hello, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me. Yes, I'm Annie Sakaric, and I will be presenting the Town of Indian Head's Critical Area Map Update on behalf of Jen Esposito. The Town of Indian Head is located on the northwestern side of Charles County, shown here in red, just that little dot up there. This image is an aerial image of the town, a zoomed up aerial image of the town, and you can see the Potomac River is located to the north, and Mattawoman Creek sits to the south. And just for some historical information, the town of Indian Head was once the territory and home to the Algonquin tribe, and the Piscataway Conoy tribal nation emerged for a period of time until being forced to flee the area after European settlement. The town's name comes from the fact that the location sits on the headlands overlooking the Potomac River. The original name of Indian Headlands was shortened over the years to Indian Head. Mythical stories suggest that the name was derived from an unfortunate romance that entails a native that lost his head over a local Algonquin princess, but that story is simply fiction created to promote an aura of mystique over the town's name. We bring this map update to you today pursuant to critical area law and regulations, which effectively requires the Commission to work in a cooperative manner with local jurisdictions to update the 1,000-foot critical area boundary every 12 years using the best available technology. Commission staff worked with the Town of Indian Head, the Maryland Department of the Environment, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and the Eastern Shore Regional GIS Cooperative to develop updated critical area maps for the town. The draft maps were vetted by the aforementioned agencies, were delivered to the town as summary draft maps for local adoption, and were presented at a public meeting. No comments were received prior to or during the meeting, and the town adopted the updated map on June 7, 2021. This map is kind of difficult to see, but shows the 1,000-foot critical area boundary. The town boundary itself is outlined in blue, and the green line represents the proposed critical area boundary, and the red is the current boundary. It's a little easier to see on here. This map shows the gains and losses in critical area acreage, with the green representing gains and the red representing losses. The mapping update resulted in a gain of 18 acres and a loss of 19 acres, with a net loss of 1 acre. Finally, here is a map of the proposed 1,000-foot boundary with the various critical area designations. And I will now turn it over to Chairman Deegan.
Okay, do we have any questions? Well, I'll recognize our program subcommittee chairman, Sue Greer.
Mr. Chairman, the program subcommittee recommends concurrence with the chairman's determination that the Town of Indian Head's mapping update can be reviewed as a refinement to the town's critical area program. Further, the program subcommittee recommends that the chairman approve the Town of Indian Head's map amendment as proposed.
And I'll accept that recommendation, and that'll be my final decision. Thank you. Annie, you got one more.
Sorry, bear with me one more
Yeah,
second.
well, you take your time. I'll fill them in on a little bit about Annie Sakaric. The shirts that you got today were approved by Annie. She picked the color because Kate and I can never agree on a color. And Annie's one of our rising stars, so we said we'd let Annie do it. If you don't like the color, tell
Nicest one yet.
Annie. Way to go, Gary. I like it.
Thank you guys. All right, so now, again, I am Annie Sakaric, and I will be presenting St. Mary's County's private piers text amendment. For reference, St. Mary's County is located on this map in red. This text amendment will amend the shoreline resources section of the county's comprehensive zoning ordinance to allow private piers in waterfront subdivisions that were platted before December 31st of 1994 that have or plan to have a community pier or boat ramp. The critical area law and regulations lay out requirements that encourage the use of a community pier in a new waterfront subdivision by allowing riparian access and slips for non-waterfront property owners in those subdivisions. However, if a community pier is provided, private piers are restricted. The law required local programs to be amended with language regarding community piers no later than December 31st, 1994, and was not applied retroactively. Therefore, the provisions do not apply to communities platted prior to December 31st, 1994. The county zoning ordinance currently restricts private piers in all waterfront subdivisions that have a community pier or boat ramp, regardless of when those subdivisions were platted. This text amendment will serve a need within the county while remaining consistent with the critical area law and regulations to allow private piers and subdivisions that were platted before December 31st, 1994. And now over to you, Chairman Deegan.
Okay, any questions for Ann? The chair recognizes Sue Gray, the chairman of the program subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, the program subcommittee recommends concurrence with the chairman's determination that the St. Mary's County text amendment identified as St. Mary's County Ordinance 21-27 be reviewed as a refinement to the county's critical area program. Further, that the proposed changes are consistent with the purposes, policy, and goals of the critical area law and regulations, and as such, the program subcommittee recommends the chairman approve ordinance 21-27 as proposed.
I'll accept that recommendation, and that'll be my final decision. Thank you very much, and I want to point out we're on time. The chair's prerogative, we're not going to talk on the next. What are we doing here? Is Charlotte, you going to do anything, or is this all you, Sue?
This will be me.
Oh, okay, good.
I was going to be covered under new business.
Uh-huh. Well, we can move right to new business. But the guy to your left remembers that you're going to need more time than that half hour you allotted this morning.
Right. We, as Chairman Deegan has indicated, we are not going to bring before you this afternoon an official item related to the Wycomico County Critical Area Program, and instead I'm going to give you a quick summary of the conversation this morning and make you aware that it will be coming back to the commission in this body at a later date, most likely at the next commission meeting. So the discussion this morning focused on a development project in Wycomico County called the Village Downriver Subdivision. It was a growth allocation that was approved by the commission in 2007. And since that time, the county and the developer, the developer has been building out the subdivision. It is about 60% constructed at this point. And this was a very unique project, particularly as it relates to the commission's approval and certain limitations on development at this project. So there have been, back in April, the county reached out for some assistance. Essentially, there is a lot coverage limitation in the intensely developed area portion of the property, which, as you know, generally is not in play. And there's also a lot coverage limitation in the limited development area. There are specific limits provided on plans. So far, the development itself the permits that have been issued to date have not all been in conformance with the approved plans, leading to essentially the developer is sort of capping out their ability to build out this project and there remain 18 vacant lots. So we have been in discussions with the county in the past few months. We recapped those discussions and conversations with the program subcommittee this morning, including how we think we can resolve and revise the plans in conformance with the approved growth allocation, but it will eventually require a sign-off by this body. In addition, it will require the county to provide some additional stormwater management, which they will work on with the developer. So the program subcommittee this morning made a motion to direct the staff to essentially direct the county to continue working on this issue and to develop a revised site plan, develop a new stormwater management proposal, and bring it back to the commission at its next meeting. So that is what we will be doing. And rather than rehash everything again, we are going to continue working, see if we can come to that resolution and develop an appropriate package that we can recommend approval to you on at the next meeting. Are there any questions? Or do we want to wait and see?
Can I just ask that at the next meeting, could we get more information on the problems with the wastewater management, more details on that?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we can.
I did have one more question on it. The contingency, will there be anything left over, or is it we're going to divide it all up and get rid of the contingency stuff? It's all done. Okay, correct.
No more contingency.
Okay, that was confusing. I think that's where the guy thought he had the power.
I get to make a comment?
You certainly do.
I just want to commend Kate and Charlotte and Emily particularly for working on this project, little difficult project for the last couple weeks. And thank you for the trip to Black County and particularly to Commissioner Ackley. That was a very nice visit. I don't need to do it again real soon, unless it's a different subject. But the staff's been working very hard on this, and as I've told them since I first became chairman, we're always looking for a way to say yes to people and be helpful. And this is kind of going to the extreme on that matter. You've done an excellent job of trying to find that. But like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink sometimes. And that might be where we are in this situation. But you've done a fantastic job over the last couple of weeks. And just wanted to say that publicly to the commission. The next thing we have is we're all going next Wednesday to Poplar Island, or so most of you are. There'll be a special guest on that little boat ride that might interest the commissioners here. The governor's appointment secretary will be joining you, Chris Cavey, so that's your opportunity to lobby. And he's looking forward to it too. So is there any other new business come before the commission? It's amazing we're at it here on time.
So,
Yes.
I just want to bring this up. The last year using Teams, I think, worked well. The staff made that as seamless as possible. So, not that I don't like seeing you all, but as this is an environmental organization and maybe it might reduce the carbon footprint, should we look at maybe periodically doing that in the future?
We can do that. It's just been so long that I kept pushing Kate to do it.
I don't want to do all of them like that, but
particularly since I have so many commissioners I've never met.
It's much easier.
Yeah, Kate and I were trying to work our schedule where we could go. Was it last week? We rode to Charles County and I met Anita for the first time. You know, but yeah, we'll look into doing that, particularly if it's a short meeting. You know, to have you guys drive all the way from St. Mary's or Eastern Shore for, you know, an hour is kind of ridiculous. I'll figure a way to buy you lunch somehow. I mean, there's not much I can do because you're not paid. So you do get mileage, right? They still get mileage, so don't forget to put that in. But your services are greatly appreciated. I know from the governor on down and to the state. I think we've done a lot in the last couple of years. So, David, did you have something?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Most governments are doing a hybrid.
Yeah.
And you hit right in the head. I mean, you save time, it's more convenient, you still get the job done. So,
We'll look into that. And you're about picking lunch tab up where we're in Baltimore County?
just try to-
All right, well, with that, I think we will adjourn for the day and probably will not have a meeting in September. Right?
Well, I don't know.
Well.
I wouldn't, there might be a limited, it might be a short meeting in September, so please hold the date on your calendar if
The
possible.
first, right?
It's September 1st, so it's a short turnaround this month. Appreciate that.
It's good seeing you all. You all have your little goodie bags. We'll work. If Annie continues to do a good job, I'll let her keep picking the color.
Now that we know who does it, we can lobby her.
For the color.